Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Sean's Repair and Reviews asked if I could show him all of my vacuum cleaners. Well, there's not that many, and the ones that I do have are pretty common, but I'm happy to show him. He wanted to have an idea of which one I would recommend. Well, it depends on what you're doing. For cleaning up down here in the shop, and actually this is the basement vacuum cleaner, I have this old Dirt Devil. It was sitting alongside the road when I was driving home from work one day, and I thought, can't be that much wrong with it. And I was right, it just needed a new belt and some cleaning. It was packed full of red hair. No, not some lady Godiva that went through and cut all her hair off. No, this looked like it belonged to an Irish setter. There was a lot of it. Once I cleaned all the hair out, it seemed to be working just fine. The new belt made it clean a little bit better on the floor, and Dirt Devil's a good brand. It's held up well now for about almost 20 years. Today I need to clean out the fireplace up in the living room. For that, I use a canister vac, sometimes called a shop vac. Mine is a big wet or dry. Actually, I have two wet or dries. I've got one big one and one smaller one. This Genie 6 horsepower canister vacuum actually was in a dumpster sitting out in front of this house when we bought the house. People who owned the house before me had used it to clean up the water in the basement. Yeah, there were some problems with the house, but we got them fixed. There was a few leaks on the front porch. We poured a new porch cap and got the water sealed up and took care of that problem. And I inherited a vacuum cleaner. Not exactly a fair trade, but you know, not too bad. This little high-performance wet or dry vac, it's called an ATV, was made by Douglas Corporation. Douglas Corporation was a company that I worked for a few years, and they were going to throw this one out, and they had dozens of them in the building. So when they tossed it out, I picked it out of the trash and put it in the back of my truck. It's been mine ever since. It does a good job. Doesn't have the capacity or the power of the Genie, but it does a nice job of vacuuming. Bending over and using the vacuum cleaner to clean the floor with just this one short section of tubing was kind of a pain in the neck and the back. So Ryan came up with this thing where he took an old crutch, cut a piece of the aluminum tubing out of the crutch handle, and attached it to the tube with some packing tape. Works really well. Another important things to remember: when you take the unit out to dump it, you want to leave the power head on it. That's the top of the container, and it also has the filter on it. The filter picks up a lot of dust, and if you disassemble this inside the house after it's filled, any of the dust that's on the filter will get out of the vacuum cleaner and into the air. And we don't want to have that, because the whole idea of doing this is to get the mess outside. Now you can see that the filter is pretty well caked. I recommend tapping it against something solid. To get as much of that stuff off as you can. Especially with ashes. Ashes tend to cling and to everything. Including me. Now the only thing I don't like about the canister type is this one doesn't have a bag. All you do is pick it up and dump it. You notice where I was standing? Yeah, the wind's coming at my back. I want the dust and everything to go that way. Now this one operates exactly the same way. Just has a little different kind of filter, as I showed you earlier. You pull the ring off, and that releases the filter. You have to knock off the stuff that builds up on it. Then you take the ring off, and this is the foam ring that supports the paper filter, keeps it from sucking in. And then this is the paper filter. Now you can see how much more trouble this kind of filter is, trying to get it clean. Canister has its own set of problems. The nice thing about these filters is, though, they're inexpensive. I haven't bought any paper filters for this one in years, literally years, 5 years or more. So I don't know exactly how much they cost anymore. Last time I bought them, it was about $8. 3 of them came in a bag along with this foam filter and an extra ring. Evidently they thought that the ring would come up missing. And to put the filter back on, you just set, it has a ring marked on the center of the filter. You set that over the top of the foam filter and center it. Then just push the ring down and it compresses the foam and secures the paper filter in place. And there's ready to go. Now this one isn't filled with ashes, just the stuff from the floor in the shop. So 11 cubic feet of air coming out at 100 psi is more than enough to clean that filter out. If you don't have 11 cubic feet a minute coming out at 100 psi, you don't really need it. Knocking the filter clean will make it so that the vacuum cleaner has enough air drawn in to do a good job. But, you know, if you got stuff to use, why not use it? This is the vacuum cleaner we use in the house. It's a special kind. It's called a Wind Tunnel Pause, made by Hoover. It's specifically designed to pick up dog fur. And with Sadie around, that's a real problem. This machine is designed with a bag, and every time we vacuum the house I have to replace the bag because it fills up almost completely. So that's all the vacuum cleaners that I have in the house. There's a bit of a bigger one out in the blacksmith shop. We'll go out and take a look at that one now. Okay, we'll plug this in and see what happens. Make sure I got the gate open. Now the bag's got a bunch of sawdust in it. There. Now we'll see if it inflates. Came with a piece of ducting. Fits right over that just fine. So that's all the vacuum cleaners. Sean, I hope that gives you an idea of what I've got and what the options are. If I had to pick, the big yellow Gemini is probably the best vacuum cleaner for working in the shop. It's a bit large, but it does have the nice filter on it. The smaller ATV vacuum cleaner won't accept the big filter. It's too long. It goes clear down into the bottom of the bucket and actually sits in the dirt, so it's not a functional thing. But the Gemini is big enough and powerful enough to handle anything I want to give it. It would double as a dust collector in a small shop. It's only got a 2-inch hose, so it's somewhat limited on the amount of air that it can take in. The Delta dust collector, as you can see, is a much larger hose. That's the big difference. It's half horsepower. The Gemini is 6 horsepower. The Gemini will develop a lot more vacuum, but the delta will generate a lot more volume. It'll pump a lot more air through. And the larger diameter hose and larger diameter section of the fan itself means that it generates more airflow. And airflow is what you really need in a shop environment if you want to pick up dust. The more air you move, the better you collect the dust. The little vacuum cleaner that I use in the house, that one works really well because it generates a lot of vacuum. It creates a very low pressure area inside the unit. That allows it to pick up dog hair out of the carpet. So in a situation where you want to use a vacuum, you have to have a large volume of air moving at a high rate of speed to generate a low vacuum pressure. The more vacuum pressure you develop, the lower the volume of air that you can move through the blower. One of those things, if you have enough air available to pump into the blower, it'll never generate a low pressure. It's just going to keep moving a lot of air. And really what you want to have a vacuum do, if you're trying to pick stuff up, you want it to move a lot of air because the air carries the dust, and the dust is what you want to move. Even the best dust collection system only pulls about 7 feet from the end of the intake. Now there can be some other things used to help motivate the air to travel towards the duct, but in an industrial environment, which is my major area of expertise, setting up large manifolds to pull air off of anodized tanks and out of working environments where you generated a lot of dust or smoke, you can really only pull about 7 feet. So best thing to have is something that generates a lot of air movement, and a large diameter ductwork. Big fan, a lot of volume, a lot of speed. The speed keeps the stuff suspended in the air. If you let it slow down, say you have a turn in the pipe and the air slows down, it generates some turbulence at the inside of the elbow. Anything that's in that air will tend to drop out, and then you'll start clogging the pipe. So the 2-inch diameter hose that I have on the vacuum cleaners, the small one originally came with an 1.5-inch hose. The 1.5-inch hose isn't as effective as the 2-inch. Same reason. The air slows down in the hose. Large volume, high speed, low pressure. And there's lots of interesting information on the internet that you can find out about dust collection systems and air entrainment systems and methods to extract gases from an environment. I would suggest doing a little study on your own. Each situation has its own unique parameters, and what works in one area may not work in the other. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.